Warm welcome to Storage Area Network. I am Lokesh MR. I am handling this subject along with Professor Amrut. This is the model 4, session 3. It's on the model 4 is on cloud computing. Previous 2 sessions we have discussed about what is the advantages of cloud computing. As I was discussed in the previous classes, cloud computing is actually a service based storage area networks. Okay, only the required informations will be shared along with the service based characteristics. Okay, in a storage area network, so if you want to provide the informations along with only the service based, we go for the cloud computing. Okay, the last session and the previous sessions we have discussed about the characteristics as well as the benefits of moving from the storage area networks being representing in the form of cloud based services like that. In the previous classes we discussed about the characteristics and the benefits of storage area network. The second thing we have discussed about how actually the cloud computing services is being transactions from the storage area network to a cloud computing service environments. Okay, and we discussed about deployment of a cloud computing. The deployment of a cloud computing is done in the form of private clouds as well as a public cloud, and we have something called community cloud. So or else we can deploy our cloud computing in terms of hybrid cloud. Okay, that means combination of the private cloud and the public cloud, or else we can use this private cloud as well as community cloud, or else we can use the public cloud as well as a community cloud like that. Those are the concepts we have discussed in the previous sessions. In today's sessions, we are discussing about cloud computing infrastructures. Okay, cloud computing infrastructures. This is very much important because if we are telling that the cloud, like how we have discussed in the data in the storage area networks, say it contains a different types of array of disks. We need to understand what actually the cloud computing infrastructure contains. So we are telling that cloud computing is a service is being provided to the storage area network to perform a service based operations. So to perform that, we need to have a dedicated hardware components as well as a dedicated software components to enable our storage area network in terms of cloud computing based services, cloud computing based services. So usually whenever we are dealing with the cloud computing infrastructures, we can divide the cloud computing infrastructures into a 5 groups. Okay, 4 groups. This is what actually today's discussions will be done. After understanding the overview pictures of the things which we have discussed in the previous class, we need to discuss about the cloud computing infrastructures, actual infrastructures. We need to provide a different hardware components, we need to provide a different software components like that. So usually 5 essential characteristics we need to incorporate by combining both hardware components as well as the software components, and those 5 essential components can be classified as a physical infrastructures and virtual infrastructure, and the third one is application and platform softwares, and cloud management and service creation tools. Okay, the particular services we need to create a special tools and we need to design a special tools, and then we need to provide it. Along with that, we need to provide a resources for these layers which we have mentioned, either the physical infrastructure or virtual infrastructures are the application and the platform softwares and cloud management and service creations tools. For that we need to provide a services, and sometimes we need to work along with the integrating of all the things, all the layer, all the infrastructures, virtual infrastructures as well as the physical infrastructures and applications and platform softwares, like that all the infrastructures need to be combined, and then we need to work on it along with the coordination between the different infrastructures which we have discussed. Like that we will discuss different types of infrastructures and its properties individually by understanding what are the different types of properties has been done in the different layers, like that. Okay, along with that, the second discussions which we are discussing about migrations. Okay, about migrations of the cloud migrations. Cloud migration is nothing but we are moving our all properties of storage area network, that providing the services to the cloud computing in terms of service based computings. These service based, whenever we are migrating from the service based computing to the storage area network computing to the service based computing, we need to we need to adapt a few technologies. What are the technology that we need to identify? How do we deploy the cloud computings? Okay, what are the strategies is being used? Okay, deployment model, we need to decide whether the deployment to be done as a public cloud for individual person, or whether we need to deploy as a private cloud, or whether we need to deploy with the application wise. Okay, the community cloud we need to deploy or not, that we need to consider when we are migrating the cloud computing operations from the storage area networks. And also we need to consider something like applications suitable for the particular service providers. Okay, some service providers requires a public type of cloud, so we need if you provide a private cloud for them, so we are unable to make our services to the public. Okay, public, if we are providing a private cloud, so where private cloud is managed by the individual person, okay, individual organizations. Okay, it cannot be shared by the other data centers. Okay, the data center is managed by the by themselves. Those data center is called as a public cloud. Okay, but sorry, private cloud. And public cloud means like it is managed by the different organizations. We are sharing it, and those informations can be shared by the different organizations also. That is public. The information is made public. Only the required persons, the requested persons will be providing, without telling that information is shared by the person A and the person B will not be shared like that. The restrictions is not being provided in the public cloud. So next we need to identify the financial advantages also. So because when we are using a providing a services in for the cloud computing, we need to identify the financial matters, because all the services which will be provided will be having a cost. Okay, you need to provide a cost for the usages. So the ownership, the total cost of ownerships is also should be considered whenever we are migrating our storage area networks into a cloud computing, and return of investments also should be calculated. If we are providing a services through the cloud, what is the investment you are providing? If you are not providing, if you are not using a cloud, if you are purchasing a whole storage area networks what is the return of investment, that also needs to be considered whenever we perform a migrations operations. And we need to have a identify the customers, okay, whether those customers will uses the services for a 24/7, whether the services is service providers will take the services for a long period of time. So depends upon the time of usages of services also matters when we are considering the migrations of the cloud computing. So if they are needs a services for lifelong, so instead of taking a cloud computing base, their own services can be provided. At the same time, we need to identify the service level agreements. Service level agreement is nothing but a quality of services which been provided for the individual client machines for performing an operations. That also needs to be considered whenever we are dealing with the migrations operations. Now first we will discuss about how do we perform, what are the infrastructures which will be provided when we are dealing with the cloud computing. So let us understand along with the diagrams. Okay, so along with the diagram as well as some points which we are listing out. So I will write the diagram at the down. So usually whenever we are dealing with the cloud computing operations, physical infrastructures plays the major role. Physical infrastructures plays the major roles. The physical infrastructures may be our servers. Okay, maybe our servers. Okay, that means the client machines will not be interacting directly with the data centers. We need to have an intermediate softwares, okay, dedicated machines, that is nothing but the servers. Okay, so these servers. So next we need to have an intermediate devices, something like routers and switches, so and gateways for connecting between the data centers and all. So those things will be represented in the fashion of like this. Okay, either for routing the data from the server as well as a data centers. So this is the devices, intermediate devices which we are using it, and as well as we have a storage arrays. Okay, we have a storage arrays. So these are the storage arrays which this is the storage array where it is called as a data centers. So whenever we call it it's a network infrastructures. So each network infrastructures should contains a each physical infrastructures should contains a servers, and it contains a routers as well as storage arrays. Okay, it contains a storage arrays. Storage array is nothing but a data centers. These type of infrastructure is called as a physical infrastructures. The physical infrastructures contains the physical servers, it contains a storage arrays as well as some intermediate network devices. Okay, so these intermediate network devices will be uses a protocols, something like IP based protocols for communications between the server as well as a data centers, and also it contains a fiber channel over storage area network for connecting between the data server as well as a data centers. So by using a fiber channel storage area networks, it is a wired based communications between the storage area networks, or else IP based storage area networks will be there, something like we have something called small computer simple interface. Okay, where it uses the concept of IP and as well as it uses the concept of fiber channels. It combines the both IP based network as well as fiber channel based network, depends upon the infrastructures. Okay, or else we have learned something called fiber channel over the Ethernet network. These are the different types of strategies for connecting between the server as well as the data centers by using an intermediate devices along with the set of protocols. So this is a storage area network operations. This information is called in the cloud infrastructures, cloud computing infrastructures as a physical infrastructures. Okay. So similarly, we have a next layer of infrastructure is virtualized layers. Okay. So we have something called virtualized layers, virtualized virtual infrastructures. Okay, virtual infrastructure means whatever the infrastructures which we are discussed in the physical infrastructures are being converted into a virtual fashion by using some hypervision softwares. For example, so if the server needs to have a hypervisioners, okay, hypervisioner software. These hypervisioner softwares will be providing the dedicated virtual machines. Okay, dedicated virtual machines. These virtual machines contains an operating systems, and these operating systems will be having an applications for each operating system for communicating between the servers. That means instead of having a physical machine, okay, so these physical machines will be converted into a virtual machines by using an hypervision software, so which is having a dedicated operating systems and the applications. Not only we are virtualizing the host machines or the servers, we are also virtualizing the network infrastructures also. These network infrastructures also can be virtualized by performing a virtualization operations. Okay, that means all the communications will be taken care along with the protocols, right? So these protocols can be virtualized through the software by using a network virtualization operations and technologies. So that means we use a virtualization operations for the network infrastructures also. So the network infrastructures will be done by taking a copy of the functionality of each infrastructures, copies in a dedicated locations, and then we are using those infrastructures as a network virtualized based infrastructures. Okay. Similarly, not only we are virtualizing the connecting devices, even the disks which we are using, that also can be virtualized. By using something called logical volume managers. Okay, by using a logical volume manager, we can virtualize the operations, and we can make our data centers more advanced. Instead of using the dedicated physical infrastructures, we can use the virtualized infrastructures of what the physical infrastructures contains. Okay, so such a thing is also a part of the cloud computing infrastructures. That means if I am telling that I am making our cloud computing contains a physical infrastructures, cloud computing contains a virtual infrastructures, like that. Along with that, so we need to provide a corresponding applications and the platforms. Okay, applications and the platform as a one of the part in the cloud computings. We need to provide corresponding applications. We are not accessing the storage area network, physical storage area networks directly. We need to have a dedicated applications, and also we need to provide a corresponding platforms, okay, corresponding platforms, whether the services is being provided for the Windows environment, whether the services is provided for the Linux environment, whether the services is provided for a particular IDE Java environment, whether the services is provided for the particular softwares, okay, those things will be done, okay, in the cloud computing in the form of application as well as a platform layers, okay. So those things will be represented in the form like this. So it should contains an operating system, dedicated operating systems for performing along with the applications. These operating systems may be a different platform representations, all the platforms are represented along with the different applications. This is one type of infrastructures is been used in the cloud computing services. So each applications which we are using is suits for the particular business wise, okay. So for example, one business person will be using one applications and another along with the particular platforms, okay. So for that we need to have a dedicated operating system along with the databases, particular databases, so that we can provide the services to the person with the specialized application as well as a dedicated operating systems and the databases, where we provide the informations in the form of software as a services and the platform as a services, okay. Those type of managing the providing the services, okay, only the platform as well as the software as a services is done through the application and platform infrastructures, okay. So the next all these operations, whatever these application and the platform is uses virtualized machines as well as the physical machines, and these virtualization machines needs to communicate along with the physical machines. All these operations, okay. So either we are using a application platforms or a virtualized platforms or a physical machines, all these should be having some work along with something called cloud management activities, okay. Cloud management activities should be there. All the operations, whether we are having a dedicated applications and platform or whether we are converting our physical infrastructures into a virtual infrastructures, all these should be done along with the software tool by the name called cloud management, okay. And even any services needs to be provided, so extra applications needs to be created, okay. That will be done by using a service created tools also being used, okay. So that means we need to have a unified management software for managing the each different applications and managing different platforms and utilizing the virtualized machines, okay, virtualized softwares, okay, or managing the physical softwares like that, okay. For managing physical infrastructures and virtual infrastructures, we need to have a dedicated management softwares. If you want to manage a different applications, we need to have a unified management softwares, and if you want to access the informations from these physical infrastructure and virtual infrastructures, we need to provide a user access management softwares like that. So we can all these type of not only just for accessing it and using the management softwares, we need to also provide some automations, okay. So human interventions needs to be automated for providing the services automatically without using any human interventions. So this is the cloud infrastructures. This is nothing but the cloud computing computing infrastructures which is being used to convert our normal storage area networks into a networked cloud computing storage area. This is one of the objective of today's class regarding understanding the infrastructures, cloud computing infrastructures. Cloud computing infrastructures can be classified as a physical infrastructures where it contains the actual informations which we have discussed in the storage area networks. These these physical infrastructures needs to be virtualized by the virtualized layers by using an hypervisioner softwares. So these hypervisioner softwares will be having a dedicated operating systems with the applications. Not only the host machines will be performing the virtualization operations, even the network also can be virtualized by using a dedicated methodology for virtualizing the connections between the host machine as well as the data centers. Or we have a dedicated logical volume managers for converting the physical disks into a virtual disks, and we call it as a virtual infrastructures. So along with that, we need to provide a applications for accessing the particular infrastructures. Simply we can't access the infrastructures which we are using in the data centers. We need to have a dedicated application software needs to be written with the corresponding platforms, and these type of dedicated application and softwares in the cloud computing are called as platform as a services and software as a services, which we call it as software as a services and platform as a services, and these are called as infrastructure as a services. Okay, all these operations, whether the infrastructure as a services and software as a services or a platform as a services, needs to perform a management activities, and dedicated management software needs to be provided for performing a managing activities of all the infrastructures which we have provided in the cloud computing operations. And sometimes we need to provide a services, extra services for creating a new operations. Okay, that will be done by the cloud service creating tools for performing the operation. This is the first objective. Next objective of this class is to understand how do we perform a migration operations and what is the advantages of performing a migration operations in the cloud computing. So when we simply we can't convert our storage area networks into a cloud computing. So we need to tackle we need to identify few advantages and disadvantages whenever we are converting our cloud computing into a migration of cloud computing to the cloud computing migration considerations we need to understand. Okay, so what are the things? So some of the some of the organization will not be ready to invest the infrastructures. Okay, and for that, instead of investing their finance to the infrastructures, they will rent the infrastructures for running their businesses, and whenever they are renting their infrastructures, they need to consider few key parameters for making our getting the services from the data centers. The first one, we need to identify the selection of deployment of a cloud computing, selection of deployment of cloud computing. So we have discussed about what do you mean by deployment model in the cloud computing. As I was telling that deploying a cloud computing is can be done by a public, a private, community, as well as a hybrid, like that. So whenever they are going for selecting which mode of deployment mode of our businesses, we need to identify the risks. Okay, we need to identify what are the risks we are facing for converting our normal infrastructures to the cloud computing infrastructures, like that. Okay, risk also we need to consider, and then we need to provide a services, and also we need to we need to identify the convenience. Okay, if we are deploying our cloud computing in terms of public, so what is the convenient, and if we are deploying in the private, what is the convenient? If we are deploying our cloud computing, what is the convenient? That also we need to consider whenever we are converting our normal infrastructure into a cloud migration infrastructures. Next, we need to consider the application suitable. Some people needs public softwares. Some people requires a proprietary softwares. Okay, so we need to identify the suitability of the deployment model. Okay, suitability of deployment model. According to the suitability, we need to select the particular cloud. Okay, so those clouds will be providing some softwares. Okay, and it will be providing from some consumer applications. Okay, for the particular applications, if they are using it, sometimes they need to move for the existing legendary softwares. Legendary software means already some of the softwares has been used for a particular applications benefits. We need to identify which are the best applications are suitable for our businesses. Those things need to be taken care by selecting the applications as a platform as a services and software as a services. When the cloud is providing a platform as a services as well as a software as a services, we need to select which applications will be suiting to our businesses for running our businesses very well. Okay, the second thing is we need to identify the financial advantages. As I was telling that some of the organizations requires their infrastructures for 24/7. So, and the renting of the infrastructures for 24/7 is too costly than owning their own infrastructures. Okay, at that cases, instead of getting the cloud computing, so we go for our own network infrastructure, storage area network infrastructures for our businesses. So that also we need to take considerations, financial considerations. We need to take it by considering the total cost of ownership. Okay, total cost of ownership. If you are having a total cost of ownership is lesser than providing the cloud computing, then obviously we go for a storage area network itself instead of cloud computing things. And also we need to consider the return of investment parameters. If we are investing this much amount, what is the services is being provided. And as we know that there is a different types of service providers for providing the cloud computings. So depends upon the demand and as well as depends upon the provisions provided for the services. We can select our own service providers. Okay, cloud service providers. Cloud service providers. There is it is something like a business. Different. Amazon is one of the service provider, and Google is one of the service providers. So depends upon the features and their cost and the security. So we can select the different service providers whenever we are migrating from existing IT infrastructures to a cloud based infrastructures. The fifth one is service level agreements. Okay, service level agreement means we need to provide a services, okay, sometimes with less prices. Okay, we some less services is required for the businesses. Okay, at that cases we identify which is more important, whether the cost is more important or whether the service is more important. That means the quality of services depends upon the quality of services required for the businesses. We can select the service level agreements for selecting for converting our businesses to the cloud computing operations. Like that, different types of parameters we need to consider when we are moving from normal infrastructures into a cloud based infrastructures, by selecting the by identifying the deployment model, and by identifying the suitable applications for it, and financial considerations we need to take it, and cloud services also we need to take it, along with the quality of service required for each businesses. Like that, these are the two objectives for this today's class. Thank you so much.